A fixture that never seems to fail ever whenever these two play. Liverpool have beaten Spurs 2-1. And guys, those last 10 minutes, if you watched it, it was dicey. But heading into this game, both sides have had their difficulties, this season so far. Spurs under Frank have looked quite inconsistent. Their performances have been below average in some games, but some games, they've managed to get over the line and get 3 points. Liverpool obviously having some sort of a similar story this season with their, run of form, consistent losses. But at least now, in the last 5 or 6 games now, we can start to see some improvements from them. We knew this game was going to be somewhat entertaining, but for the first time in a while, whenever Liverpool played Spurs, you'd always expect Liverpool to win. At least in recent times, I'd always go into this game expecting Liverpool to win. This was the first time where I'm like, I don't know. I had question marks. It could be a draw. Liverpool could also win, like how it happened today. But Spurs could also pick up a surprise win too. So, and also for the sake of the managers too, I feel like Thomas Frank's job is kind of on the line, especially after this loss too. Although I don't think, this loss kind of represents his management. It's more so on the players. And also Slot's job too. I mean, there's a lot of, media attention Slot's getting because of the whole Salah situation. That seems to kind of, died down now. But in terms of the way the season has been going for Liverpool, a lot of, eyes have been on Slot. So both the managers as well have had their fair share of scrutiny over the last 2 months or so. But I think, the first thing that comes to mind, when talking about the game is that those first 20 minutes, we kind of saw Spurs in their intended game plan. Xavi Simons, Kudus were getting on the ball a lot. It kind of felt frustrating as a neutral to see the quality of both teams and their passing was just average. I didn't think it was that good, to be honest. I mean, Kudus would often pick the balls up, on the right-hand side or so, but he'd be very slow, very tepid in attack, in the breakaways. You'd kind of see Spurs had the opportunity to, launch counterattacks, kind of exploit that, that Liverpool defense, but, they either be reluctant to actually, send the ball long to runners, or you'd often see that runners wouldn't actually make runs in behind. So it was a bit frustrating in the sense where Liverpool obviously kind of struggling to gain control of the game. They'd also often, misplace a couple passes in those first 20-30 minutes. But then the game changer happened. The big game changer. Now, if you're a Spurs fan, I can, understand your frustration with this because that Xavi Simons red card, that's a bad one. That's a really, really bad one. If you're a Spurs fan, man, you guys must be absolutely furious. What a stupid challenge. Honestly, what a stupid challenge. This challenge actually reminded me of the Gordon challenge against Liverpool at the beginning of the season, I think it was. In fact, I think it happened in the exact same spot. If you guys go look at the Newcastle game against Liverpool, I think it was the second or third game of the season. That Gordon challenge happened literally in the same place to Van Dijk as well. Away from the ball, he was nowhere near the ball whatsoever. A lazy foot out, hit the top of his Achilles or just below his calf. So it was deemed a dangerous challenge or deemed a serious foul play. But honestly, what a stupid challenge because you could just sense, obviously both teams were in the process of growing into the game. The first 20-30 minutes weren't exciting whatsoever. But to know that your team is not in the greatest run of form, to know that your manager is facing heavy, heavy media attention, in terms of will he get sacked? Will he stay in the job? Is he fit to manage Spurs? Whatever. But to go in for a challenge like that, I get, I think the frustrations actually got to Xavi Simons' head a little bit, He kind of essentially allowed Liverpool to grow back into the game without them doing anything whatsoever. It's a bit of a reckless one. Like I said, if you're a Spurs fan, tough luck with that. And I feel like that red card kind of painted the picture for the rest of the game. Liverpool, obviously, we're going to dominate possession, being an extra man up. Actually, I think the second half kind of fed into more Thomas Frank's play style, at least what he's so used to at Brentford, where he's pragmatic in the sense where he knows he's a man down, or his team's a man down. So he'd sit back, make it kind of difficult for Liverpool to break him down. But I think Thomas Frank's going to be very disappointed in the way Spurs conceded their first goal because it's the manner and how it happened that it just makes it even worse. And if you were to kind of, sum up Spurs and the way their seasons has been going so far, it's just bad decision making from players. First, obviously, the Simons red card challenge. But Romero's pass, guys, what is that? That pass is horrendous. I don't think he was under any pressure whatsoever. Launches it, I think it deflects off Wirtz or McAllister, and then they're able to break away. I think it was a quick 2v1. Wirtz, a great pass into Isak, and Isak opens the scoring before getting absolutely clattered by Van de Ven. I think Romero, besides that point, was actually having a decent game, and obviously he gets sent off later, which doesn't have any sort of a good look on him at the moment. It's the manner and how they conceded that first goal which is so disappointing because bar that opportunity, Liverpool actually didn't really create anything whatsoever. For 56 minutes, that's when Isak scored, they didn't create anything whatsoever. So Spurs, I'll be honest, that one's on you. That one's 100% on you. Like, you can't really do too much about that. It's just a mistake that led to a goal. And Liverpool, floodgates started to open. But good news for Liverpool at least. Wirtz, guys, after 17 whole games, or 16 actually, I don't know if he started one of them. 16 whole games, he finally grabs his first Premier League assist. So I'll give a round of applause. Florian Wirtz. 130 million. It's about damn time, to be honest. But the floodgates started to open. Liverpool were able to carve a couple more opportunities. Ekitike, a man who's really in form. 5 goals in his last 3 games. Guys, this guy's a problem. He's starting to become a real problem. And it's funny because when Isak came on, I think he got shifted off to the right. But then Isak, speedy recovery, by the way, to Isak. That injury actually looked quite bad. I think Ekitike kind of got shifted out to the right. I don't know. I feel like now that Isak's injured, and this has nothing to do with Isak, or I have nothing against Isak, now we could really see Ekitike without any pressure of, seeing Isak on the bench, if you were to get taken off. Like, I feel like Isak being on the bench kind of motivated Ekitike to play a better game. So now that Isak's gone and there's no real striker, competition, I think it'll be really interesting to see how Ekitike kind of, develops or evolves for the rest of the season. But honestly, Ekitike, guys, what a player. What a player. He is so good, man. Especially for that goal, too. I mean, I know it's controversial because he puts 2 hands on the back of Romero. You could argue that it was a foul. You can argue that it wasn't a foul. Personally, I could hear both sides. I do think Romero kind of goes down, kind of soft. Ekitike, considering his size and build, shouldn't be able to shrug off Christian Romero like that's someone who's so aggressive. But Ekitike, great header, great positioning in the box, a real striker's goal, if you want to call it that. And 5 goals, like I said, in his last 3 games. So he's looking really good. And honestly, from there on, you just expect Liverpool to kind of just take care of business, see out the game. I think Ekitike scored in like the 70th minute or 65th minute or something like that. So for the next like 20, 30 minutes, you kind of just expect, some sort of cruise control. 2-goal lead. They're down to 10 men, but they never make it easy, Liverpool. They really never make it easy. And I think, the only kind of chance or scrape of hope that Spurs had was to just send balls into the box. What other chance do you have of scoring a goal? You're not going to get it from like playing out wide. You're down to 10 men. Set pieces, make it difficult, make it scrappy for Liverpool at the back. And that's what they did. I think Frank subbed on Richarlison. A real bag of tricks these days for defenders. Subs on Richarlison. And Spurs actually managed to grab a late goal. Made it real scrappy in the box. Van Dijk, by the way, has to do better there in my opinion. Pinball into the box, as you guys know. If you win a header, it could land somewhere. It could land somewhere else. Who knows? Liverpool make a mess of it. And Richarlison grabs a goal. And guys, literally like 30 seconds after he scored, he could have grabbed the second too. Like, they were that close. There were a couple opportunities where Liverpool actually could have conceded a second. And it's a reoccurring story with them. We saw that Leeds late on where they conceded 2 goals. I don't know if question marks should be raised, but I think question marks should be raised for this specific moment because they were down to 10 men or even 9 men after Romero got sent off. Bit of a talking point there, at least for that Liverpool backline. I'm sure they're going to be frustrated that they conceded where practically Spurs had no intention or chance of getting back into the game. So yeah, like I said, this fixture really never seems to disappoint. And if we were to look quickly at the table, what does this mean? Liverpool back into the top 5. It's about damn time, to be honest. Spurs, it's not looking good. Bad run of games, as you guys can see. But personally, I don't think this performance should be on Thomas Frank. I feel like Xavi Simons let him down. Romero let him down. So there's not too much he could do considering the circumstances of the game. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I actually quite enjoyed that game, considering the first half was a bit boring. The second half was entertaining as hell. Subscribe if you haven't already. Guys, we're so close to 150, which is ridiculous. I have no right to be at 150 subscribers, which is insane. But yeah, leave a like, and I'll see you guys after the Arsenal game, which is about to start. Peace.